Hello and welcome back to In Conversation with WLV Doctoral College. My name's Dr. Deborah Curitan and I'm an Associate Professor of Equity in Learning and Teaching working in the Doctoral College at the University of Wolverhampton.
And I'm Dr. Ben Halligan, I'm Director of the Doctoral College of the University of Wolverhampton.
So this vlog, we're going to talk about postgraduate researcher responsibilities and supervisory team responsibilities. I think this is really important, isn't it, Ben? Because all relationships are about negotiation and understanding the rules of the game. And supervisory relationships work really, really well if students and supervisors both understand their responsibilities, but also have similar expectations of the relationship. So I think this is really a really important topic to talk about. So Ben, what are your ideas about what the responsibilities of a postgraduate researcher are?
I think ultimately you need to begin to take control of your development of the timeline of your research. I think that's something unique to doing a doctorate. I think you can't necessarily feel that there's some sort of structure with a series of deadlines that you're hitting and that you'll be shepherded towards the end goal. Ultimately, it becomes project management skills that you need to develop. So in that respect, I think on a day-to-day basis, you need to really ensure that your supervisors are aware of how you want things to develop, of the timeline for that, and that it's all agreed and it's all understood. So it may well be that you decide that you want to complete the literature review by a certain time, that you need the ethics approval by a certain time, you want to do the first bit of fieldwork by a certain time. So draw up a timeline, discuss it with your supervisors. This is how I see things. This is what I'd like to achieve. These are the goals. These are the dates. This is what I'm going to give to you. So by this date, on this day in this month, you will have the draft of chapter 3. But what I need back from you is an agreement to give me some feedback within a few weeks or however long. So I think in that respect, taking control of the development and the timeline is really important, and do that yourself. And that will give you some confidence as well, moving things forward. Of course, dates slip, things happen, stuff that you thought you could do fairly quickly may take a bit longer, so there's always going to be a matter of adjustments, and that, that's quite okay. So that leads me to my second point, which is to really, I think, be upfront about what is challenging, what is not working, whether it's around lab kit, archival access, whether it's taking too long because there are too many books or too many articles. If something's been difficult, don't paper it up and think that every time you meet your supervisor, he or she is assessing your progress and finding you wanting or finding that you've done well. I think be upfront about these challenges, because often challenges like these are happening for quite good reasons, and sometimes those challenges and the reasons for them can feed back into a thesis. If navigating a certain archive is proving difficult, it's taking longer, the index is wrong, the documents are obscure, that's part of the experience of doing a PhD, and it can be written into the PhD as well, in terms of talking about the challenge of writing the PhD, but also the challenge of accessing the material. So number 2 is just be really upfront with your supervisors. If you have personal issues, family, financial, all universities, and including us as well, will also have a facility for personal tutors that you can speak to in confidence. So you can take that conversation to other people and not allow it to occur within the context of the academic interactions that you're having with your supervisory team. My third, as it were, tip in terms of dealing with supervisors and your responsibilities is to notate what is agreed. So you have a supervision meeting, why not say at the end, let's just do a quick summary. It's agreed, I look at this, I look at that. I'll try and do that within the next couple of weeks. Then I get you a draft of this. We've agreed it will be by this date. You've asked me to do some training. I'll check out the opportunities for that and I will book onto that, and I will have done it by the next time. And then also you've asked me to check again some table or some data or whatever. I'll do that and I'll bring back the results of checking that next time we meet. So I would take supervisory sessions that can often be fairly chatty, fairly speculative. There can be a lot of things that are discussed, but try and summarize them into bullet points to give yourself the orientation, to establish what's agreed, and even better than that, whack it in an email to the supervisors. Thank you so much for talking the other day. Here's a summary of the things that I'll be doing between now and the next time we meet, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would do some summaries, do some bullet points, ensure that you've got this evolving record of what has been agreed. Those are my 3 do's in terms of what the PGR should be doing with supervisors.
Okay. I think there's some really interesting points there, particularly about being open and honest with your supervisory team, particularly if things, there are things that are getting in the way of your progress. I think it's very important to make sure that your supervisory team are aware of that. And I think this leads us on to talking about, what the responsibilities of a supervisory team are. So for me, I think that they're kind of summarised in 3 areas. A supervisory team have an educational responsibility, they have a pastoral responsibility, and they also have an administrative responsibility. So educationally, they're there to support you in your progress as a postgraduate researcher. So they should be meeting with you on a regular basis. At Wolverhampton, we suggest that postgraduate researchers who are full-time meet with their supervisors at least 9 times a year, and if you're part-time, at least 6 times a year. And that could be more if you're working in a lab or in a workshop or in a studio, because you may well see your supervisors on a regular basis. But a supervisory team meeting is sitting down and talking about the progress that you're doing and you're making with your research, talking about what you're doing, how you're doing it, where you are within the process of your work, and whether or not you're keeping up to those deadlines that you've agreed with your supervisory team. So a supervisor's role will, their approach to supervision will change over time. So they'll start off being quite directive and supportive and sort of telling you where to read and what to read, but they will slowly wean you off that approach and gradually support you towards that process that Ben talked about of taking ownership of the piece of research, being in control of where the research goes, what it is that you do within the research, making those plans for progress, making those plans for development, understanding what it is that you're good at, what you need to enhance and develop. So your supervisors have a role in your supervisory meetings to talk about those things with you, but you really should be driving them. You should be engaging in thinking about these things before you go to your supervisory meetings. And your supervisors are there to support, to challenge, to help, to point you in the right direction. And I think talk to supervisors in supervisory training about the hand, the book and the boot. So it's the helping hand when you need a bit of direction, the book that's the sound, what you're reading, the feedback, the challenge, the intellectual discussions that you will have around what it is that you're reading and your understanding of that and your thoughts about that. And then the boot is the kick up the bum when you need that little bit more motivation to keep going. And we don't mean a boot in the way of being telling you off. It's encouragement. So really it's a helping hand rather than a kick up the bum. So on an educational level, they're going to be feeding back on your work. They're going to be giving you support. They're going to be helping you find your direction and then supporting you with taking the lead in the research that you're doing. On a pastoral level, as Ben said, There are pastoral tutors in the faculty that you can talk to as well, but your supervisors can also offer that pastoral support. So if there are things going on in your life that are getting in the way of you making progress, do talk to your supervisory team about that, because your supervisory team have a responsibility to look after your welfare. So they'll be able to advise you on what's available in terms of support within the organisation that you're researching at, what type of, whether there's a leave of absence process that you can take if you're unwell or that you need some time away from your doctorate, and also information about things like extensions, which have been really important over the pandemic. So,
can I give you some don'ts as well?
Yeah. Can I just talk about the administrative side and then invite you in? So, and I'm just laughing because it's come up in the auto transcript as, can I give you some donuts as well? And I was just thinking, yes, please. So, on the administrative side, your supervisors are going to be keeping records about the supervisory meeting. So those notes that Ben has talked about are really important, because they will form either the notes that your supervisor will upload to the note system, or will form the basis of those notes. They will also be looking at paperwork, doing the administrative paperwork around your APRs. So they'll be signing off paperwork with your annual progress review. They'll be keeping their eye on the months that are ticking by as you're doing your research, and trying to keep you in time for a timely completion. So your supervisors will have lots of administrative responsibilities as well around your doctorate. So in terms of your administrative duties, you do need to enrol and your every year, and you do need to pay your fees. Your supervisors don't do that for you. But I know at the University of Wolverhampton, you will get a reminder email from Research Degree Student Services, who will help you out if you've got any problems with the enrolment process. So, Ben, you were going to add some don'ts.
Yeah, just really quickly. Okay, yeah. So number one, don't think that going to talk to your supervisor is getting work done, because it really isn't. And in some instances, I've had to stop people I'm supervising from coming in and just chatting more generally for 45 minutes about this, that, or the other, about what book they intend to read. Sometimes you worry that some researchers think, well, they're not doing any work, and they'll assuage their guilt by talking to the supervisor for a bit. So don't think that's work, because it probably isn't. My second is, don't allow ambiguity in the way that you present work to a supervisor to read. It's very normal to get bits of drafts that's like a further draft but not a complete draft, or you've read this bit already, or you first saw this bit in some other way, or don't read this bit, or this is the bit you're reading. So you get this enormous file that is really, really, really confusing. And it's very normal to wind up rereading the same stuff, getting frustrated because whatever you suggested hasn't been implemented. So I would not allow any ambiguity. I would very, very clearly mark what it is you're asking the supervisor to look at and why, and the state of it. And this is a first draft, this is a final draft, this incorporates your corrections from last time, things like that. Then I think my third thing is, don't assume that the supervisors are necessarily aware of the nuances of your particular timeline. It may well be they've, between them, got another dozen students they're dealing with. So if there's an annual progress review coming up, for example, then introduce it yourself. Say, of course, my annual progress review is due in 4 months. Next time we meet, could we maybe talk about that and talk about completing the forms, and because then it should occur in this month and then it'll be over. So the third thing is, don't assume that they're going to hit you with the deadlines that are coming. You need to know those and to bring them up yourself.
So my 3 concluding tips are, be open and honest with your supervisory team so that they know what's going on and they can advise you accordingly. Don't be scared, because I know a lot of postgraduate researchers talk to me about thinking that their supervisory team are going to think less of them if there's some sort of difficulty going on in their life outside of the research, and that they're not being professional if they're bringing it into the doctorate. That's not the case at all. We're all human beings. Things happen in life, and a doctorate is at least 4 years long, and that's a long time for to be studying, and things do happen along the way. So be open and honest. If you're concerned about something, about the way that the relationship is working with your supervisory team, be brave and speak to your supervisory team about it. So, as I said, a style of supervision may change. And if you notice a change and you don't know what that's about, then ask your supervisory team. Just say, I'm feeling a little uneasy about how this is going. And they will then have the opportunity to discuss with you what the reasons for that. And finally, my final tip would be that it is very important to talk about the ground rules in your supervisory relationship, so that your supervisors can talk to you about what they see as your responsibilities, and they can talk to you about what they feel are their responsibilities, and that you're both fully aware of who's responsible for what, when and how. So that said, Ben, is there anything that you'd like to say before we finish?
Only that you're not going to master all of this overnight. Part of the skill of being a doctoral researcher is developing these forms of communication, these forms of project management, and feeling a confidence in taking ownership of the direction and progression of your research. So it's something that we anticipate may take some months to get a handle on. Brilliant.
Thank you for that, Ben. So thank you for listening. As always, if there's anything that you'd like us to cover in these vlogs, do put your ideas in the chat and we'll be happy to pick those up. It's been lovely speaking to you again, and we look forward to speaking to you in our next vlog. Okay, bye.
Bye.